The problem, as I see it, is we have this book and that posits we are all insane. We are all insane. And there are innumerable benefits to being insane. One is it's a guaranteed shortcut to compassion, first for ourselves and then to others. You know, and insane is really like the Christian idea of sin. We define sin and evil in our first book, The Game of God, as believing in or acting on false belief. That's all it is. You know, a paranoid schizophrenic who thinks you're out to get him is just going to attack you like a cornered rat, even though that has nothing to do with objective reality at all. It's the way that person perceives objective reality. It's so distorted that they can see, you know, CIA helicopters up there circling and the government's coming to get them. God knows what that deranged individual and out in Tucson, you know, same thing. He's James Gilligan, Gilligan, who wrote a wonderful book called Violence. He was in the Massachusetts prison system, Harvard Medical School, and
psychiatrist.
His theory is that everyone who commits an act of violence is doing it out of a pursuit of justice. They are seeking justice. And somebody who's really redshifted toward a deranged mind state can see things that literally aren't there that no one else can see. But I'm kind of going round and round again. Let's get back to it. The idea is, our theory is that we're all insane because first of all, we define insanity as confusing mind-generated reality with actual reality. And since no one knows what actual reality is, yet the exigencies of survival require us to go through life really acting like we know basically all that's worth knowing. We really know what reality is. That's what makes us crazy. It's thinking we know when we don't know. So
okay, let me just kind of go into a little exposition of why I think one of the reasons it's so hard to realize that we're insane is because our minds are a reasoning machine. Our minds are always explaining things, and the mechanism for explanation is logic. And even people who are, by the psychiatric community are labeled insane, their minds still work in this logical fashion. So it appears to them in their minds that what they're saying makes sense. And that's one of the things that's some reading I've been doing recently that's been kind of startling to me is I read this book on Carl Jung, and he was working in a mental hospital in the late 1800s. And that was something he started realizing were these psychotic patients that no one at the time could understand at all. This one woman in particular was spouting all this stuff that, my hair is made of waffles or something. I mean, it was just plain out weird. And everybody dismissed her as just being completely delusional. But Carl Jung started using word associations. And when he did that, he started realizing that she was making sense in a really deep way. She was explaining reality in a way that could help her cope with her life. And the way it was coming out sounded weird, but deep inside there was a logic to what she was saying.
A method to her madness,
yes.
if you will.
And so in her mind, she was logical. In her mind, it made sense. So that's one of the obstacles to recognizing our insanity. I mean, there's an obstacle for somebody who is clinically insane, is to her it makes sense. To her, it helps her explain reality in a way that allows her to live with her life situation. And so, and then there was another quote from that Jung book that's what, Jung himself said something like, our mind doesn't really care whether an illusion is real or not. What matters is whether it works. Does it help us survive? And that really, I loved how that tied in with our theory of the survival of thought forms, that's their goal, is to survive. And if it appears that our beliefs are helping us survive, and we have a logical explanation for why they're helping us survive, then to us, it does not look insane. To us, it looks sane because we're surviving. So it's working. Therefore, this must be good. Then I was reading this article in Harper's last night about schizophrenia. And they were trying to, some people are trying to intervene in people who, before they really have a psychotic break, at which point you just are, basically never recover.
You have memorial services.
And
following what happens.
So they give some these tests, and one of the tests, I love this. This was incredible. Was like kind of a word association. How are banana and apple similar? What would you answer?
They're both fruit.
Okay, that was the correct answer. Okay.
I'm saying my
But-
theory is wrong.
What they said was the
theory.
incorrect answer that a lot of schizophrenic patients give is they both have skins. Now that's true.
That
That
much
is a
more
way.
subtle.
That is a way they're both alike. But it was
Sophisticated
called
even.
incorrect. And I was like, what's incorrect about it? Nothing. It's the only incorrect thing is it's not the socially acceptable cultural first word association that we would give. And one of the reasons I was kind of aware of this is because they have discovered that culturally there are differences where if you asked someone from Asia, there's another word association, it's cow, pig, hay. And they would say, which of two of those are most alike?
Obviously, cow and pig.
Now, someone from Asia would say cow and hay.
Yeah, sure. There you go.
Because the cow eats the hay. They have a relationship with each other. And so a psychologist in our culture would have labeled an Asian psychotic, delusional, because they don't go together. But it's a different way of thinking. But why should two people who say apple and banana are alike because they have skins, why should that be a delusional response? It's completely logical. So, I mean, what I'm saying here is this is why it's so hard, because even in clinically insane people, there is a logic to our reasoning, to our thinking, to the way we put our mind-generated reality together. And so we have to stop thinking that just because it's logical means it's true. Or just because I'm logical, I'm using logic, it means I'm sane.
Just because you conform to the accepted contemporary system means you're more sane than they are.
Right.
Yeah, because this is the cutting edge. I mean, someone at our first event asked, if we're all insane, why are some people crazier than others? Mm-hmm. And I've really been playing with this lately because it's if we say we are all innocent by reason of insanity, the whole human race, universal human insanity. What is that? UHI? UE?
UE. UHI. We'll have to work on this.
Yeah, we'll have to work on it. Get a better acronym.
Yeah.
What is it? Why, Katie, used the term clinically insane a couple of times there. And we know what we're talking about. The reason, our first line of defense, why we don't feel like we're insane, and neither do you probably, viewer, unless you've been diagnosed with mental illness. What's the dividing line there? Why are some people need to be on heavy medication and or institutionalized when the rest of us walk around loose? If we're all insane, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. And we've addressed this on some earlier shows, but I think it's really pertinent to today's show because the idea is what happens if we really get that we're insane? Well, I think we talked about this last week. The first thing, maybe the greatest benefit of all, because we happen to think that self-hatred is also universal, because none of us know who we are, but we go through life putting on this act that we made up when we were still doing it in our diapers, the foundation of it, and we erected this personality structure, and we totally identify with it, and we think it's really who we are. And one of my first songs was, I see your true light shining through those veils of personality. Those veils you've worn so long, you've come to think of them as you. But there's something like cheap makeup on a lily of the field. They're the poorest imitation of the glory that is you. That this basic, magnificent consciousness that underlies everything is buried alive in the process of being born and growing up in a tribe, in a society. And you conform to that tribe and you become like it. You learn the language, you learn the symbols, you learn the superstitions, you learn to look both ways when you cross the street or the donkey cart will run over you. You learn not to stick your hand in the open fire pit. But you also learn that, the moon god comes out when that moon is full and stalks the jungle, and you better not go out there, or the god will eat you, or whatever. You learn that kind of nonsense, and you get, but you form all sorts of opinions about yourself, and you get buried alive under beliefs about yourself that aren't really real. They have a lot to do with conformity, and I think really to cut to it simply, I think that the difference between the people on the inside of the mental institution and the ones on the outside are the ones on the inside simply cannot conform, cannot hold down a job, have a different symbology, their way of relating to this gigantic mystery of what's really going on. They can't participate in society. They can't fake it in a way.
Right.
There's a lot to be said for them, but they can't play the way we play, so we, the majority, put them away.
Well, I think that you're oversimplifying a bit, because I think that there are levels. I think there are some people who we consider insane that are like the fool on the hill, that are the ones who refuse to play the game. I think there are some homeless people out there who are labeled insane by our culture, and they're not insane at all. They may even see more deeply into reality than the average person, and they're unwilling to play the game. I do believe there are people like that. And there are people locked up in mental institutions that are drugged because they are unwilling to play the game. Then there are other people who it's not like that, that they become so, because I have a sister who's diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I don't believe she's seeing things more truly than I am. I think she has a lot of trouble understanding what is real. That she is so locked into some delusional thinking that she cannot cope with real life.
Yeah, if I can just interject this, that we talk in our new book about a prioritization system in our minds. Certain data is excluded because it's really irrelevant to staying focused on the task at hand. If you didn't have a point of focus, when you're driving a car, usually you're giving a lot of attention to the road ahead. You're not bombarded with all sorts of sensory input and memories and all that stuff. And the kind of mental illness I think you're trying to describe is that prioritization system is broken down. It's definitely physiological.
Right.
And chaos, mental chaos results where these poor people cannot function.
Right. And what they do, because I see this in my sister, is they retreat because the world is so overwhelming. They cannot process the information. And it's just the best thing to do is just be alone.